Hey folks, Colin here from Sumthins Recording, and today we're going to talk about what to do if your drummer misses the snare drum. We're going to be doing some drum editing today, but before we dive in, if you're ready to take your snare recording process to the next level and really start honing your workflow as a recording engineer, then I have just the thing for you. It is my essential guide to recording snare drum, and it's just a simple PDF that will walk you through everything you need to know, from mic choice to mic placement to setting your input gain to get a professional and polished snare drum recording. It is a completely free guide, and you can download it below using the link in the video description. Now let's jump in here and take a look at these drums. We have here an otherwise flawless drum performance here. You can see there's a couple edits here at the end. Snare drum was a little hot in one point, so we're pulling it down, but the performance was pretty flawless here. So we don't have to do another take of the drums, but there is one spot right here where the drummer missed the snare drum, whether they, dropped their stick or they just missed the drum, didn't hit it hard enough, something happened, they got it caught on something on the way down. It happens, mistakes happen. So what do we do if the drummer just misses the snare drum at one point in the song? So we're going to talk about that today. Let me play you what the drums are sounding like at this point in the song, though. We're going to start a little bit back here, and we'll take a listen going into this missed snare hit right here. So you can hear right there, right as our verse 3 starts, snare drum kind of cuts out there on all three mics there. So let's take a listen, just our snare mics. Sounds like maybe he hit the mic instead of the snare drum. Happens sometimes, especially if the mic's in on the snare drum, you're trying to get those center hits rather than the rim tone. Sometimes that drummer is going to hit the snare drum. It happens. So what do we do here? We have this one spot right in the middle where our snare drum is missing. First step here is we're going to take all of our drums. So we're going to click our first drum here, which is our kick in mic, scroll down, hold shift down, click our room mic, which is our last drum mic there, and then in Studio One, to create a group, it is Command G. That's our shortcut there. We don't need to name the group because we're just using it for editing purposes, but you can always call it drums, but spelled correctly if you want. So all we're doing here, we're creating a group, so we're going to edit the drums all together. We don't just want to crop in a snare drum just on our snare, otherwise we're going to have phase issues across our hit. And then of course we want the snare drum to be present in our overheads and the room mic as well. We don't want one just pasted in just on our snare mics here. So we're at the beginning of verse 3. We want to look for a similar section in the song. So I'm going to reach for the beginning of the last verse. So if we look back here, we have verse 2. Let's take a listen here to the beginning of verse 2. Hopefully we have something similar. So all we need is that first bar there of the verse. That sounds close enough to me, and that's the snare hit that we're missing right there. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this first bar here of the verse section, I'm going to copy it so you can see, since we're editing in a group mode here, when I highlight just our kick section, it highlights all the way down. So when I Command C and copy this one bar here, it'll copy all the way down. Now we can come back over here to our third verse here, highlight that same section, delete it, and then paste in our new section. So let's see how it's sounding just right off the bat here without tweaking the edit. That's actually not too bad going on the way in. The cymbal blended over quite well. We'll just have to make sure we're not losing our kick drum there on the downbeat coming back in from the edit. So what we're going to do first, since we have everything highlighted here, all we're going to do is we're going to click X, and that's going to add crossfades in. You can see the crossfade show up here. So on the way in and on the way out there. Next, we need to fix our first edit here. So again, since we're in group mode, we can drag these fades across our tracks all together. So we want to hear the new kick drum because we want to hear the new cymbal hit because it'll fade better instead of trying to make our old cymbal fade into our new snare hit. So this is our edited kick here, or our kick from our edited paste in. And then you can see where our original kick starts. So we want our fade to be before our original kick there. That should be okay. Let's take a listen to the edit going on the way in now. That's not too bad. We can always fade it a little bit more. Let's see if we can get closer to our kick drum there. And then we'll just take our fade and pull it across just a little bit here to see if it gives us a smoother transition. If not, what we had was perfectly fine. That was a little funky sounding, so we're going to go back. And all we're going to do is we're going to take this up and see if that gives us a better transition. The shorter the fade, usually the better. When you're fading together drum pieces, it can get a little phasey because you're adding in multiple parts underneath the fade. Sounds perfect. All right, let's fix this next one now. So we have a missing kick here because it's right on the downbeat. So let's pull this fade back. I'd prefer it to be the kick from the original track. That way we're not fading the kick from the edit into our next snare hit. This bar can start with our original piece here, as long as our cymbal is not still going. That's the only concern there, is that we don't want our cymbal to randomly disappear. That looks pretty good there because there's not an actual kick hit there on the way back in. So we can get as close as we want to that kick hit there. And let's see how that sounds going into that section now. It sounds okay because of the closed hi-hat, but we could always go a little bit further to get rid of that actual cymbal being cut off. That way we hear the cymbal. So we could go up, let's go up to this bar here and see what we get if we go up to here. That way we hear the cymbal naturally fading out. That's pretty good. We could go a little bit further, but that sounded pretty natural to me. And we don't want to get too far because we have another cymbal hit here on our downbeat. That sounds pretty good. If you're a little iffy on everything, if you can't do it by ear very well, if you're a little worried about your edits, you can always use the zoom in function down here. So if we come to the bottom right here in Studio One, we have this option to zoom in our audio so you can see where everything starts and ends a little bit clearly, a little bit more clearly. So this edit here, right, we can see there's our kick and we can make sure our fade's before our other kick there. Same thing here on the end, right? We can see where our kick actually starts and we can see where our other kick starts before it. That way we can be as close as we want to that kick without hearing any of the clicks and pops from that kick being included in the fade over there. That's a nice feature to have, and it's always nice to make sure your fades include as much information under them as possible, especially with a live drum kit like this. You don't want it to fade out and fade back in quickly like that, and you don't want it to diminish your volume at all during the fade. That kind of stuff sounds unnatural across a live drum kit or across a variety of microphones like this. You don't want your volume to randomly dip and jump back up, even if it's really quickly like that. So pulling up your fade to an exponential fade like that is always a nice component to have or a nice feature to have on your fades. Let's back up here and we'll listen to the entire section here as a whole now. Sounding really good, right? We're not hearing any clicks and pops on that first kick hit there, and our cymbal fades very nicely into our next edit there. Before we commit this, before we bounce any of our edits, it's always a good idea to save a layer of the edit. So if we highlight all of our drums once more here, right click on them, come down to layers, duplicate the layer. That way you have a layer with this edit in here, so we can always get back here to this particular edit. If we find later that maybe it doesn't sound quite right in the mix, that we need that fade on that cymbal to be longer, we can always get back to this edit and we don't have any problems because we bounced and committed it. So now that you've saved a layer, we can always come up here. So close our layers, highlight all of our tracks here, merge them, and then bounce them down. So we'll have clean tracks all the way across to start with in our mix session. I hope that was helpful for you. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you are ready to take your snare recordings to the next level and really start dialing in your process as an engineer, then I have just the tool for you, and it is completely free. It is my essential guide to recording snare drum, and you can grab a copy of it below to start creating more professional snare recordings in less time. Thank you so much for watching today, and I will see you in the next video.